My fiancée laughed when her family called me broke at dinner, so I canceled the wedding and used the venue for my new company launch instead. I'm a 31-year-old guy, and I never cared about being rich. I cared about building something real. I grew up in a family where stable meant safe, and dreams were often treated like distractions. But I always wanted to build something of my own. So, after years of odd jobs, sleepless nights, and caffeine-fueled weekends, I started a small digital marketing agency from my one-bedroom apartment. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every client, every campaign, every line of code represented a step away from the life I was told to settle for. That's when I met Sarah. She was everything I wasn't. Elegant, polished, confident in ways I could never fake. We met at a networking event I almost didn't attend because I couldn't afford the ticket. She laughed at my self-deprecating jokes, asked real questions about my work, and didn't seem to care that I drove an old Civic with a broken AC. When she said, "You have such drive, it's kind of sexy," I swear it felt like the universe was finally giving me a nod of approval. Sarah came from a family that measured worth in square footage and last names. Her dad was a corporate executive. Her mom ran charity galas and wore pearls like they were part of her DNA. But none of that mattered at first. When she'd sneak away from her world to eat cheap takeout with me, sitting cross-legged on my couch while I ranted about client calls. I believed we were equals, partners. When I proposed, she cried and said, "I don't care about the money. I care about us." And for a while, I believed her. I thought love was the one thing that didn't need a price tag. But looking back, that night was the peak, the last moment before everything started to crack. I didn't know then how quickly love can turn into quiet judgment, or how expensive I don't care about money would become. I started noticing the cracks almost immediately after we got engaged. It was subtle at first, a hesitation when I talked about business struggles, a nervous glance when I mentioned postponing our honeymoon until things stabilized. Sarah's parents invited us over for dinner one evening, and her father asked what I did for work. When I explained, his smile froze midway through his glass of wine. "A startup, huh? That's risky," he said, swirling his drink. Her mother chimed in, "Well, at least Sarah's used to a certain lifestyle. I'm sure you'll catch up soon." Sarah didn't say a word, just smiled weakly and changed the subject. On the drive home, I tried to laugh it off. "Guess your parents aren't fans of digital marketing," I joked. She stayed quiet, fingers tracing invisible patterns on her phone screen. Finally, she said, "They just worry about me. They want stability." The way she said "they" instead of "we" stuck with me. The more time I spent around her family, the smaller I felt. Conversations turned into subtle reminders of my place. "Oh, you work from home? That must be nice," her sister once said, her tone dripping with condescension. When Sarah laughed along, something inside me shrank. Still, I convinced myself it was just their way, old-fashioned, not malicious. I doubled down on work, pulling longer hours, trying to prove my worth through numbers and contracts. I wanted her family to see I was serious. But the more I tried, the more detached she became. She started saying things like, "You're always busy, or can't you just take a break and enjoy life?" She didn't understand that I was building our future one late night at a time. I ignored the red flags, because love makes you blind in the most logical ways. I told myself it was temporary, that once I made it big, the jokes, the doubt, the distance, it would all disappear. But the truth, that dinner wasn't just awkward, it was a warning shot. And the next one would hit straight through my pride. It happened on a Friday, not one of those pre-wedding dinners meant to bring both families closer. I remember standing outside Sarah's parents' house, adjusting my tie in the car mirror, trying to convince myself this time would be different. My company had just landed a decent client. I felt proud, even hopeful. Maybe tonight, I thought, they'd finally see me as more than the guy Sarah's marrying. The table was long, the lighting warm, the wine expensive. Her family's conversations flowed effortlessly. Stocks, vacations, brand names I couldn't pronounce. I smiled, nodded, tried to keep up. Then Sarah's father raised his glass and said, "So, tell us, how's business? Still running that little, what do you call it, freelance thing?" The word little stung more than I expected. I took a sip of water, forcing a polite smile. Actually, it's a registered agency now. We just signed a few new contracts, her brother cut in, smirking. Oh, so you're rich now? Guess Sarah won't have to downgrade to economy class after all? Laughter rippled across the table. I waited for Sarah to defend me. She did instead. She looked at her brother and said, "Stop. You're going to make him blush." The way she said it, light, teasing, almost affectionate, was the worst part. Like my humiliation was part of the entertainment. My stomach twisted, but I forced a smile and said nothing. The air around me felt heavier with each passing second. Her father leaned back, satisfied, as if the hierarchy had been re-established. I excused myself to the bathroom, staring at my reflection, the tie too tight, my smile brittle. I wasn't angry yet, just tired. When I came back, the conversation had moved on to the honeymoon, but every word sounded muffled. I wasn't really there anymore. Something inside me had quietly fractured. That night, as I drove home with Sarah laughing beside me, I realized love doesn't hurt the most when someone betrays you. It hurts when they laugh while others do it for them. After that dinner, something between us shifted quietly but permanently. I started noticing things I used to brush off. The way Sarah avoided eye contact whenever money came up. The way her tone softened only when her parents were around, as if she needed to prove she was still their good girl. We were 3 months out from the wedding, and every day felt like walking on eggshells. She'd spend hours scrolling through wedding blogs pointing at $5,000 flower arrangements or designer table settings. I'd try to gently steer her toward something reasonable, but she'd always say the same thing. "It's my parents' money, babe." Relax. I hated that phrase. It made me feel like a guest in my own wedding. At night, I'd stay up working, tapping away at my laptop while she slept soundly beside me. My business was growing, but I couldn't shake the pressure. I wanted to prove myself not just to her family, but to her. Every deal closed felt like a step toward respect, yet no matter how hard I worked, the gap between us only widened. One evening, I got home late, exhausted, and found her on the couch, laughing at something on her phone. "What's so funny?" I asked, setting my bag down. She smiled that effortless, polished smile and said, "Just a meme my mom sent." Something about how love can't pay the bills. She laughed again. I didn't. I sat beside her, staring at the wall as the sound of her laughter filled the room. For the first time, I realized it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like I was living in someone else's story, one where I was the background character, tolerated but never truly valued. I told myself I'd talk to her about it, maybe fix what was slipping, but deep down, a small, quiet voice whispered the truth I didn't want to face. You can't fix a relationship where love feels like charity a week later. That whisper turned into a scream. I came home earlier than usual. I'd wrapped up a client meeting downtown and wanted to surprise Sarah with dinner. Her favorite Thai place, extra spicy noodles, the kind she always claimed were too hot for normal humans. I wanted a quiet night, maybe a real conversation. But as I walked up the steps to our apartment, I heard her voice through the half-open balcony door. She was on the phone laughing, relaxed, a tone she rarely used with me anymore. I froze when I heard my name. "I just wish he made more," she said, her voice carrying that careless sigh I knew too well. Oh, it's exhausting pretending like everything's fine. I can't keep explaining to people why I'm marrying a guy with no house or savings. There was a pause, then her cousin's voice, faint but audible. "Maybe you should have gone with Ryan. He's doing well, right?" Sarah laughed softly. "Ryan's engaged now, but yeah, sometimes I wonder." It felt like a punch to the gut. The woman I'd built my future around was embarrassed by me. Not for who I was, but for what I didn't have. I backed away before she could see me, dinner bag still in my hand. That night, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. I sat in my car for an hour, staring at the city lights through the windshield, numb. Everything I'd sacrificed, sleep, comfort, my sanity suddenly felt meaningless. When I finally walked inside, she smiled like nothing had happened. "You're home early," she said, wrapping her arms around me. I hugged her back, pretending because I didn't know what else to do. As she fell asleep later, I stared at the ceiling, my mind burning with quiet rage and heartbreak. That's when something inside me shifted a cold, precise kind of clarity. If she could fake love this easily, I could learn to fake forgiveness just as well. The next morning, I woke up before dawn, not because I couldn't sleep, but because something in me had changed. The pain was still there, but it wasn't consuming anymore. It was sharp, focused. I made coffee, sat at my desk, and opened my laptop. If love had become a transaction in her world, then I'd make sure I had something far more valuable than her approval that week. I got an unexpected email from a major investor, a man I'd met months earlier at a business conference. He'd been following my company's progress and wanted to schedule a meeting. At first, I didn't think much of it, but something told me to take the chance. Maybe fate had decided to throw me one lifeline after all. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. I walked in wearing the same suit Sarah once called cheap but cute. The investor, a calm older man with kind eyes, listened as I pitched my plans. He didn't interrupt, didn't smirk, didn't measure my worth in numbers. When I finished, he said, "You've built something honest." I like that. Then he offered a deal that would change everything, a 6-figure investment for a 20% stake. My company wasn't small anymore. Overnight, I became the CEO of something real. I didn't tell Sarah. Not yet. When she called that evening, complaining about flower arrangements and guest lists, I listened quietly, smiling to myself. Her words no longer hurt, they amused me. Every shallow comment, every snide remark from her family, suddenly felt like fuel. At night, I looked at the wedding invitation proofs spread across our dining table, her name and mine intertwined in gold. For the first time, it didn't make me feel proud. It made me feel trapped. So I made a decision. I'd play my part. I'd smile, agree, nod at every insult, until the perfect moment came. Because love may forgive, but humiliation, that demands a reckoning. The weeks leading up to the wedding felt like walking through a performance I never agreed to star in. Every day brought another demand, another decision made without me. Her family had practically taken over everything, the venue, the catering, even the music. When I suggested something small and elegant, her mother laughed. "Oh, honey, people like us don't do small. This is a statement wedding." People like us, Sarah started echoing that tone too. "Babe, don't stress," she'd say, scrolling through her phone while I handled invoices. "Mom's covering most of it anyway." Every time she said Mom, I felt myself fade further out of the picture. It wasn't our wedding anymore. It was her family's stage show. And I was just the prop groom. Then came the rehearsal dinner. A night meant for celebration turned into another round of subtle humiliation. Her father raised his glass again. He loved to toast himself and said, "Here's to my daughter for marrying for love, not money." The table erupted in laughter. Even Sarah giggled, eyes glancing my way like I should find it funny. I didn't. Instead, I just smiled, took a slow sip of my drink, and watched them. Every insult, every patronizing joke, every smug smirk burned into my memory. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm. Too calm. Because I already knew something they did. After dinner, as guests mingled, Sarah came up behind me, slipping her arms around my waist. "Don't look so serious," she whispered. "It's just a joke." I turned, looking at her, really looking at her, and said softly, "Yeah, just a joke." She smiled, thinking I meant it. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about the joke. I was thinking about timing, opportunity, and poetic justice. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud, it's elegantly staged. Right where they expect your surrender. The night before the wedding, the calm finally cracked. I came home late from a last-minute business call, still wearing the same suit from earlier meetings. My phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from colleagues who knew nothing about what was coming. When I walked into the apartment, Sarah was pacing the living room, arms crossed, frustration etched across her face. "You forgot the necklace," she said flatly. "What necklace?" I asked, confused. "The diamond one I showed you. I told you I wanted to wear it for the ceremony. You said you'd handle it." I blinked, caught off guard. Sarah, that necklace cost more than my first year of rent. I thought your parents were. It's not about the money. She snapped. It's about showing up, about proving you can. No, I stared at her, trying to find the woman I fell in love with somewhere behind the sharpness in her tone. Prove to who, Sarah? You or your parents? She rolled her eyes. God, you always make it about pride. Maybe Dad was right about you. The silence that followed was suffocating. She realized what she said, but she didn't take it back. She just walked past me, muttering, "You always overreact." When the door slammed behind her, I sank onto the couch, every ounce of composure gone. I stared at the wedding binder on the coffee table. Pages of plans, payments, names. My name, hers. Everything that was supposed to symbolize love now looked like a contract I'd signed without reading the fine print that night. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, watching the city lights flicker through the blinds, feeling something die quietly inside me. Love, maybe. Or maybe just illusion by sunrise. I'd stopped shaking. My chest felt hollow, but my mind was clear. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to explain. I was done being the humble one. And the man walking into that wedding tomorrow wouldn't be the same one walking out. I woke up before the sun that morning, the day that was supposed to be my wedding day. The air felt different, heavy but still. I stood in front of the mirror, buttoning my shirt, my reflection almost unrecognizable. The man looking back at me wasn't the broken version Sarah thought she'd left behind last night. He was composed, calm, and frighteningly certain. Before 7 a.m., I made a series of quiet phone calls. The first was to the wedding planner. "Cancel everything booked under my name," I said flatly. She stammered something about penalties and confusion. I didn't flinch. "Bill me whatever you have to. Just make sure no one walks down that aisle." Next, I called the venue manager, an old client turned friend. "Keep the reservation," I said. "But we're changing the event." There was a pause, then a slow chuckle. "You finally doing what we talked about?" he asked. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Exactly that. By mid-morning, my phone buzzed nonstop, Sarah's name flashing over and over. I didn't answer. I could imagine the chaos unfolding, her family scrambling. Guests confused, her father barking orders like a general losing a war. Every missed call was music. I drove to the venue hours before anyone else would. The staff was already transforming the setup, removing floral arches, replacing banners, adjusting lights. The same hall where I was supposed to vow my forever was now being rebranded for something else entirely, as I walked across the empty ballroom. I ran my hand over the tablecloths, the polished silver, the untouched champagne glasses. Everything looked perfect, just not for a wedding. Outside, I could hear the faint sound of a delivery truck unloading branded signs and stage lighting. My company's logo. My future Sarah wanted a show. Her family wanted a spectacle. And that's exactly what they were about to get, just not the one they planned. By noon, the ballroom looked nothing like a wedding. The soft pastel decor had been replaced with sleek black banners, LED backdrops, and a podium in the center under a glowing sign that read my company's name. Bold, confident, undeniable. My team arrived in crisp suits, setting up press kits, lights, and media equipment. The investor had arranged for local business journalists to attend. Cameras would roll. Every headline tomorrow would feature one name, mine. As I adjusted my tie, the same one I was supposed to wear to say I do, I heard the sound of commotion outside. A sharp, familiar voice. Sarah's mother. "What do you mean canceled?" The invitations went out. "The guests are on their way." I didn't move. I just listened as Sarah's voice joined the chaos, strained and panicked. He wouldn't just vanish. "Check the venue." Minutes later, the doors burst open. Sarah, her parents, and a few guests stormed inside, only to freeze. The flower arches were gone. The cake was gone. Instead, the stage lights glowed against the words "Launch Event, Elevate, Media Group." My logo shone where our initials once did. Sarah's eyes found me instantly. Her makeup was perfect, but her expression cracked like glass. "What? What is this? I smiled calmly, stepping up to the mic. A new beginning, I said. Cameras clicked. The press started recording as I delivered my speech about ambition, resilience, and self-worth. I thanked my team, my investors, and then, without looking at Sarah, I said, "And to those who underestimated me, thank you. You gave me the motivation I needed." A hush fell over the room. Sarah's father's face flushed red. Her mother gasped, and Sarah just stood there, trembling not from anger, but realization. I didn't look back as I stepped off the stage, shaking hands with my new partners. The applause thundered, drowning out the chaos behind me. That day wasn't the death of my wedding, it was the birth of my freedom. The next few days were a blur of headlines, messages, and stunned silence. By the next morning, every major business blog had picked up the story, "Groom cancels wedding, turns venue into startup launch." Photos of me at the podium flooded social media, confident, smiling, surrounded by investors and cameras. The internet did what it always does. It turned my pain into virality. Some called it savage. Others called it genius. But no one called me broke anymore. Sarah's family went into damage control. Her father's company, which prided itself on family values, faced public embarrassment. Clients started pulling out, not because of me, but because of how arrogantly they'd treated the story. Poetic justice, delivered by the algorithm. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I didn't post, didn't gloat, didn't explain. Silence was my weapon now. My inbox overflowed with new offers and opportunities. The investor partnership opened doors I'd only dreamed of. In a single week, my company gained more visibility than it had in 2 years. One evening, I got a text from Sarah. Just one line. "You didn't have to humiliate me." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "I didn't. You did that when you laughed." Then I blocked her. But beneath the triumph, there was still something heavier, a quiet ache. Winning didn't erase what I'd lost. The love I'd once believed in felt hollow now, replaced by a strange emptiness. Every victory felt like it echoed inside a room where something used to live, yet even that emptiness carried peace. For the first time in years, I didn't owe anyone an explanation for who I was or what I was worth. And as the noise faded, I realized revenge isn't about hurting them. It's about finally walking away without flinching. Months passed. The noise eventually faded, the headlines disappeared, the hashtags died, and the world moved on. But I didn't. Not entirely. Success came faster than I could process it. My company tripled in size. I moved into a new office with glass walls and a skyline view. The kind of space that used to belong only to people like Sarah's father. Sometimes, late at night, I'd stand by the window, looking down at the city lights, wondering if she ever looked up at the same view. People loved the story. Investors called it the ultimate comeback. Colleagues called me the guy who turned heartbreak into a brand. But the truth? It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about respect mine. For years, I had begged for it. From her family, from everyone who measured worth in dollars and last names. But now I understood. Respect isn't given when you finally earn enough. It's taken when you stop asking for it. One evening, I got an email from Sarah. No bitterness, no apology. Just one line. "I hope you're happy now." I stared at it for a while, then typed back, "I am. I hope you find what money couldn't buy," and I deleted her contact for good. Life got quieter after that. I rebuilt my circle, surrounded myself with people who valued effort over image. My mornings began with gratitude, not anxiety. My nights ended in peace, not performance. Looking back, I don't hate Sarah. She wasn't evil. Just a mirror reflecting what I refused to see about myself. That I'd tied my worth to proving others wrong, instead of believing I was already enough. I take a deep breath. Looking at my reflection in the office glass. Smiling faintly. I didn't lose a fiancé, I whisper to myself. I lost my biggest distraction. And for the first time, I finally feel rich. Not in money, but in peace.